Hi there. Welcome inside the Midlife Pilot Podcast, a podcast all about learning to fly and aviation later in life. And this is episode 6 of the show. And tonight we're talking all about what do you do once you've earned your private pilot certificate. And it should be a good time. My name is Chris Moran, also known as the Midlife Pilot on YouTube. And my esteemed co-host from the southern-ish west, east, central, I don't know, the region near the country music capital of the world, Nashville, Tennessee, Brian Siskind.
It's actually, hey, Chris, how's it going? It's actually Tornado Alley now, is I think what we call it. So, um, yet another one just went by the other day. The same path as the March 2020 tornado. So I live about a mile and a half from John Tune Airport, which is where I fly out of, and just north of that airport, we had another one come through. So, and what's really wild, by the way, is that there's all this construction is happening there because of the last tornado that destroyed everything, and so there's hangars being built everywhere, and it's just chaos. And so all these planes are displaced with no place to be, and there's no tie downs for them. So this one was coming through with all these planes out there just chalked up and hoping for the best. I could have ended up with a 172 in my backyard, which maybe would have been fortuitous. I don't
know. You've been trying to figure out how to get a plane, so
right.
that's one way.
But
Awesome.
yeah, everything's good. We're good, and I'm here with a cold beverage that's what do you call it, seltzer water, and I'm excited to be here. And it is a unique thing, right? Like the midlife pilot question, right? You want this thing so bad, you get it. So then what do you do with it? We're not going to ATP. We're not going to go join a regional airline job or whatever. We just want to do it. So then you kind of get so head down with the training. So now what? So I'm looking forward to hearing what people have to say about it.
Yeah, it should be exciting. Want to take a minute up front, though, real quick in this episode to just remind everybody that we do this. We record these live on Wednesday nights, and we do it on YouTube and Facebook and whatever, and participate with the audience, and it's great. This audio podcast, though, is available now everywhere that podcasts are available. And so if you want a chance to just listen, there's an hour-long show. We keep it to an hour. It's a great commute listen. Be sure to subscribe at your favorite podcast place. And if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and just leave us a rating and maybe a review. In fact, we have a review I wanted to read tonight real quick right at the top from Cigar Lover 68, who says, honest content from 2 low-hour private pilots. Useful, applicable information provided in a fun, relaxed presentation. I mean, look at us. Fun and relaxed. Does that not hit the nail on the head? You'll always walk away from an episode with something helpful or encouraging. So thank you very much for that. It's very kind. It's exactly kind of what Brian and I talked about when we set out to do this, which was it's not we're not teaching how to fly, and we're not instructing, and we're not experts in the field. We're just talking about our experiences in the hope that it's kind of what my YouTube channel has been from the beginning. Hopefully that the experiences that we're having are helpful and fun for others. So anyway, yeah, I thought that was kind of cool to see.
What you're saying, Chris, is that you want to be a beacon of light.
Exactly, in a dark, dark world. So doing the best we can.
No, it is really cool. I mean, and your channel is definitely an originating sort of impetus to that spirit and that philosophy and that sort of humility of walking into it and respecting aviation and the quest and all that. So it's really amazing that anybody can walk away with any kind of encouragement. That's great.
Exactly. So what's been going on? You've been flying?
Yeah, I've been flying. It's been I'm basically just trying to figure out how many people want to fly with me so that I can share the expense. That's really what it's about at this point. But no, I've done some flying, nothing crazy, but flying to breakfast and going to some neat locations, and it's been awesome. I've had a great time. I've had great flights, no major hiccups or problems or anything like that. So yeah, all good.
Very cool. I actually, for once, I can report also that I have also been flying, which is an abnormality lately. I've actually flown both planes, and I want to mention to everybody real quick. I don't know if you remember, we have in our flying club that I run, we have 2 airplanes. We have the 235, Cherokee 235, which is my plane that I've been flying a lot. And we have a Cessna 172, which is kind of the OG of this club plane. Well, the 172 has been down out of service since September 13th. We hit some geese at the Fairmont Airport. There is a picture of it the night of the goose strike. Did some damage there to the right leading edge of the wing. Ended up being a pretty expensive repair, but the biggest problem wasn't the cost. The biggest problem was finding parts. Like, ended up, we ended up manufacturing a part to fix the skin of the leading edge. Anyway, the point is, it took a few months to get to that point. Well, this plane, I'm happy to report, I posted on Instagram yesterday, is officially out of the shop, back online. Another club member and I flew it yesterday for the first time in 3 months. We put 1.2 on it yesterday, just kind of making sure everything was still good and test flying it, and it flew fantastic. And now we're back at full strength. And I just checked. I got notifications on FlightAware a few minutes ago. Both of our club planes at night were out flying around here tonight with club members. So it is so awesome to be back at full strength in the club and have both of our planes flying. That has been 3 months worth of crazy. So
Wow, and that's kind of like the Midlife pilot mascot plane if you really think about it.
it is. It's the OG. I mean, that's what started it all.
Yeah, I mean, I've don't take this personally, Chris, but when you started flying the Cherokee, I'm like, I can't relate to this. I don't know this is crazy. There's all this different stuff. I want to see somebody suffering through what I suffered through and leading the way and learning from in that way. But I have gotten to the point where I can find value
I
in your
have
Cherokee
these.
videos. So I just want you to know that it's
Well,
still
thank
good
you.
with me.
I have this input from both sides. I'm actually getting people who are like, "Don't fly that." They see that I posted a picture on Instagram with the 172, and they're like, "Fly the 235." Those are the videos I want to see. So, like, I'm getting both
Oh,
sides, but I do have content coming. I got one coming out tomorrow for patrons, and this weekend for everyone is a 235 video. And then we actually videoed the test flight last night in the 172, so including like the high speed taxis down the runway and the other stuff we did. So that one will be coming out in a week or so, which is kind of cool. That was a fun and slightly nerve wracking experience. I mean, it was just wing leading edge damage, so, but and that was easy to repair. It's not like it's not a moving part, right? I mean, that's
yeah.
pretty straightforward. More for me was the fact that it sat for 3 months, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
all the other components, what I was worried about. So we did some big, full power ground work, and then stayed around the airport, just kinda orbiting for a little, kinda like what you do when you're breaking in a new engine or an overhaul, just kinda making sure you're good before you head out,
Did you wear any
later.
kind of helmet or extra safety equipment just to kind of lean into the occasion a little bit?
I should have. Instead,
Yeah.
I wore a ridiculous T-shirt. I can't wait for you to see it. It'll be in the video. And then also, I had a pack of mints and 2 bottles of water. That was the extra material that I took.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna go down, have fresh breath, right?
That's what I always say. Um, Sweet. So yeah, let's jump in. Want to? You've got your private certificate. Now what? It's a good question, I think. Because you're right. You're working so hard to get there. I experienced that a little bit after my check ride. It was kind of like, now what do I do with it? I've been up with my instructor so much. Like, I had regimented things that I was going to do to fly. Like, I was going to the practice area. I was going to Clarksburg to work in the pattern. Like, what do you do with it once it's yours? You have the freedom. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have, I think, tunnel vision because you're just, especially once you're getting into almost check ride, you just want to get it done, and that's all you're thinking about. It's been interesting for me. I mean, I have a different set of possibilities than say you do. I mean, you have a flight club, planes at your disposal, and all that. At the same time, I mean, I can rent planes and fly planes, and it's not impossible, but I do have limitations in terms of how far I can kind of go, and I can't do overnights yet. Although, side note, my flight school is getting a fleet of Redbird Redhawks, which is a very interesting thing because they're diesel, and they are push button start, FADEC run ups, all this kind of weird refurb 172s. But anyway, it should be pretty interesting. And I believe that some of those might be allowable now to take overnight. And so that really opens it up for me. I feel like, I actually ran into my instructor the other day, and he was sort of, I wouldn't say he was saying anything negative, but he was kind of like, are you done with the airport hopping phase of post private pilot license acquisition kind of thing? He didn't say it in those words, but it was sort of like, kind of like, are you ready to go ahead and get your instrument or whatever? And we've talked a little bit about this, where it's like for me, not only am I sort of recovering financially and just trying to make sure I stay just constantly flying and not let anything atrophy and continue sort of growing within the constraints that I have, but it's also about I want to be a VFR pilot for a while, actually. And there's a lot of instrument pilots that will tell you, just because I'm instrument rated doesn't mean I'm going and hunting those conditions. It's not like all of a sudden the world's available to you in this whole new way. I mean, it is, but it's also not a license to start flying in conditions that you shouldn't. So it's a whole thing. But anyway, so I find it very interesting, the whole dilemma. I want to hear what people have to say about either what they're envisioning that they're going to do when they finish, or what they've done right away after getting it done. For me, it's definitely been exploring, and I'm still just getting used to the whole thing, right? Like I still can't believe, this is what I kind of wanted to tell my instructor when he was kind of, he wasn't being negative, but he was kind of like, all right, buddy, like, when are you going to be done with this phase? To me, it's existentially amazing that I can go legally go get in an airplane and then go fly it around and then bring it back to an airport. That's bonkers to me still. So,
Right.
so anyway, the smallest thrills are still really, really big for me. And when I do get a rental long enough to be able to stop and go get lunch or breakfast, that's enough for me right now. And also just sharing it with friends, like we've talked about. When we talked about sort of flying with nervous passengers and all that, that kind of stuff you don't get training on. So, that's been a real focus for me, is learning how to fly different types of people around and acclimate them to the environment, and just go through I learn something every time I fly. And until that, stops, I feel like I'm satiated for now. So I don't need to do any grandiose things.
That's fair. I mean, I took, I was very anxious to take my first passenger, right? As soon as after I got my certificate, and I didn't really know who that was going to be per se, but it ended up being my friend Kevin, who we made a video about my first passenger. We went to Elkins and just kind of bebopped around a little bit. That was pretty fun. In fact, it's Kevin who's in the videos coming out this weekend. We went in the 235 about 70 miles away, and just for lunch on a Sunday, just like not for any purpose other than like go out and have a meal with someone. We ate at a restaurant. We joke, it's in the video, but we went to a place that you wouldn't, if you lived there, you wouldn't go to eat the food,
Right.
right? But the novelty of it is it's a diner at an airport, and that's always, anything at an airport is great. So like, I think some of that, just like, that's certainly one aspect of it, like sharing it with others, and that. I've been trying to be, so like staying night current, like here's some weird things, like trying to find little missions within the private scope to continue to execute. Like if you're in the training mode and you don't want to give that up, which you never really do want to give that up, but like not everybody, I don't fly at night voluntarily. Like I don't like the associated risk of it in a single engine airplane, but I want to be current in the event that I need to land after dark, or that I have people with me or whatever. So I'm staying night current by going out, getting the landings that I need, and that stuff after dark. I think that's a fun mission, just to keep, that's one you've always got. You can keep on a calendar and, know when you've got to do that, and just
Hmm.
stay on it. Um, some of the training stuff, I think I still love pattern work. I mean, I still love going to Clarksburg and knocking out 10 landings at a time and spending an hour just playing with that. Power
Hmm.
off 180s. Just like, how many different ways can I do? How many flap configuration landings can I do? And how many different uh, things can I get done in the 1 hour that I want to put on this Hobbs today? Those kind of things. And so I
Hmm.
think there's value in that. And then there's some other stuff I don't know that we've ever talked about on this show. I've been there's some of the nonprofit flying out there that exists. There's all kind of charity flights. There's people ones, but there's also animal ones. If you're an animal person, now again, this will determine on your access to airplane situation and whether your place you're renting planes from allows it or whatever. But like, Pilots and Paws is a great organization. I've been a member as soon as I got my private. I haven't flown any missions yet, just because I check the message board almost every day or every other day. I haven't had any that worked geographically in my area, that worked with the schedule.
Hmm.
But I am very excited, and so is my daughter. I mean, I'm very excited about the opportunity to like help take pets that need to get from a shelter somewhere to a forever home or whatever the mission may be, to like move some dogs and cats around. I think that is an excellent thing to do. And there's no added pressure of like taking someone, a human being, to their treatment at a hospital, or I mean, the added pressure of additional passenger carrying.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm allergic to animals, and I don't own a plane, so the odds of me doing that are very slim, but I think that's a valid certainly a valid mission. I think that's great. I had a question for you. I guess I was wondering, is there anything that you feel like, so for example, I think I've mentioned this before, um, since I got my since I passed my check ride, I have done 0 stalls, and I will not do them unless I'm with an instructor. And some people think that's weird. But do you have certain things that you don't do a lot of that you did in training that you kind of either wish you did more or just won't do without an instructor?
Yeah, I mean, I probably need to get out and do some maneuvers. Truthfully, I'm trying to think. I've had my certificate for a year and 2 months now. I can count on one hand the number of uh, steep turns and stalls I've done.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I would, and it's not for lack of. I mean, I would feel comfortable doing them on my own. Um, I think that's a personal preference kind of thing, but you probably should do them. I mean, there's certainly value in staying. I say I haven't done any steep turns. I have definitely executed a steep turn as an actual maneuver, into an airport. Like specifically, I'm thinking of occasion. In fact, almost a steep turn. I don't know that I actually got to 45 degrees yesterday, but it was close. It's 45 or 60. 60. What's steep turns for private? Is it 45 or 60?
45.
45.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was closer. It might have been 45. Crossing midfield, and a teardrop turn back to enter downwind. We had to cross over the field to get on the correct side, and then descending turn back to downwind. And I was a little tight to the airport and wanted to end up right on the downwind, so that's just a nice steep bank turn right into the pattern. So I say I haven't done one, but also haven't done one in performing for the ACS, but I've
Right.
done them in real life.
Zach here has a good point. He's saying he doesn't do any hood work without an instructor. So I think that's sound.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you would have to have, I mean, legally, obviously, but you could do it with another passenger if you're a
If you do it by
private, or another
yourself, do you
pilot.
also get the safety pilot,
Yeah, you log them
time?
both
Yeah.
plus
That's how you double your
simulated.
time.
Yeah, nobody will. What's the big deal? It's the worst that could happen.
Right. No, but so, I think that, I think a lot of people have, it depends on where you live and what you have access to, and I know it's sort of an open-ended question, but, um, I'm also just interested because I feel like I have various levels of comfort with different types of missions at this stage, there's certain things where I'm still sort of in the mindset of making sure that the people I fly with are either already interested in training themselves or are just really open to the experience. And I'm not really in a position to, you know, have any utility or function to get people from one place to the next. Like I'm still very much gingerly walking myself forward towards more missions of particular responsibility or certain planning or timings or things that are going to put any kind of pressure on the outcome. I've had already definitely several flights where it's like, yeah, the plan we have for today, that's not happening. We're just going to go do this and it'll be fun and it'll be great. And there's just never been a problem. So I've always left myself an out in that way. But I'm interested about you in some of your videos you were able to actually find work purposes really early, to go and do recon missions for work things and all that.
Yes. And that's all. If you have that luxury to use it to travel for your job, that was for our own company that we own, for our video production company. It's actually came in handy a few times. Um, the company that I work for now does not allow you to travel by general aviation as a pilot. For on work related business. It's a liability. I'm sure it's a liability problem for a lot of companies, or at least they feel like it is. So we're working on that currently with some trying to get maybe some procedure policies changed or some waiver options or whatever. So I don't have that luxury in my day job currently. But yeah, for work, um, I think maybe even other just other aviation related things that may excite you. Like I'm a huge fan of like big busy airspace. I don't have a lot of it around me. Like Pittsburgh is the closest Bravo to me, and it's very close. I mean, it's within, like 40 miles or 50 miles of me. I love going to Bravo airspaces if I can get in them, and like doing city tours and doing stuff that don't be afraid to challenge yourself. I mean, I think is part of it. Like
Mhm.
if you're into that kind of thing, I not everybody is, but I like the ATC communication. I like the instructions. Like I like being told things that I need to do and then being able to execute them
Mhm.
accordingly. Don't do it
Yeah.
blindly. Obviously, you kind of plan what you're going to do. It's not just like go willy nilly. But um, I think challenges like that are good if you've got reasonable and you have an excellent area near you. Of course, Nashville's a Charlie, maybe is it?
Yes, it is.
I thought it was a Bravo, but it's
It's a
not.
fairly I would say for a Class Charlie,
Busy.
it's a fairly hectic Class
Oh yeah,
Charlie. Um,
it's
and that's so
probably
that's
busier. I need to look it up. It may be as busy or close to as Pittsburgh.
yeah, I mean, and that's the extent or the ceiling of whatever my, tower experience is. I still haven't made it to a Bravo yet. I think the nearest is gonna be Memphis or, Atlanta. So I just haven't made it that far. I haven't had a reason to get into a Bravo yet
Right.
or the easy ability to train near one or anything like that. That's a weakness for sure. But, I think that with all those things, I think once you've gone through enough of the rigor of training and then you kinda get out there on your own, uh, I think that what happens is, even if you're not apprehensive, even if you're a little nervous about maybe something that's stretching a little bit beyond what you've already done so much of that so many times where you've already told yourself, "I don't know how the hell I'm gonna do this," or like, "I don't,"
Right.
"How does this work?" or whatever, and then you just figure it out, and then you put yourself in the situation, and then you figure it out, and ultimately, with any kind of tower communications, it's always been a positive thing for me, where I'm not afraid to just, even especially when I was a student pilot, just, "Hey, student pilot, explain it to me like I'm 5,"
Right.
and, I'll probably still do that sometimes, but yeah, I mean, so, but you have that again, like, you have that sim background where you were doing a lot of you were doing comms and sim work at the same time, right?
That's one of my favorite. I give this tip to so many people who ask me about stuff early on in their training, like what can I be doing at home? Do
Mhm.
I need a flight simulator? One, I cannot enough emphasize subscribing. Even if you just and you can do this, you can come in and out as much as you want. There's a service called Pilot Edge, pilotedge.net, that offers. They have set schedules. They have a staff of people. These are real human beings that offer air traffic control service to you on your flight simulator. So, like they have a region that they run. You install a plug-in for whether you use Microsoft or X-Plane or whatever your sim of choice is, and then you communicate with them like literally with audio. They see you, you see them. They see your transponder codes and your altitudes. There's all kind of, in addition to just, you can just go as a VFR pilot or IFR if you're practicing for your instrument or whatever. You can go do pattern work at a tower and talk to them and get clearances and how to find. You see all the other traffic, other people who are there with you, like other humans. You hear them. It is a real kind of immersive experience into it with less pressure. Now, I say less pressure, and it is. They're legit though. Like you can mess up and they'll kind of teach you and help you through. But if it's just somebody trying to come in and like be a Yahoo and screw around, like they don't tolerate that. Like you've got to be in
It's
here
like the
for
old Leroy
per
Jenkins thing.
exactly. Yeah, Leroy Jenkins. They won't tolerate nonsense. I mean, that they're there for a serious purpose, but it was so incredibly helpful. There's a free, VATSIM, virtual air traffic simulation, has been around for a long, long time. It's free, but the level of controllers and availability is because that's all volunteer based. Pilot Edge is a subscription and they pay their people. So
Yeah.
there, anyway, point is it was fantastically helpful. Like I can't even tell you how prepared I felt. Like I never thought about radios when I started training. Like, it was natural from lesson 1. Like, I
Mhm.
didn't have to think about it ever flying, and that was so it just took so much off, because I see so many people struggle with that, you know, because that's a lot of times people don't think about that before they start training, right? It's like all the flying things, and then suddenly they throw radio work at you, and you're like, oh my
Mhm.
god, I haven't even thought about what I need to ever say here, you know. And
Mhm.
you have to kind of come up with all that while you're in the airplane and learn it as you go, and it
So
was really
how
helpful.
realistic are these people in terms of, various temperaments and attitudes and all that?
Oh, I got in trouble on Pilot Edge more than once, for just kind of stupid things that I did. I mean, you know, the stakes are much lower, right? So you're it's a little easier to just miss something or not be paying super close attention. Plus, you know, all your flight sim planes have autopilot, and you can just kind of like you're taking calls and doing whatever else you're doing while you're like doing
Right.
this. But yeah, I got in trouble a couple times for just completely busting airspace or doing stuff. But it's very, very
So it's
it's
unlikely in the real world that you would have, a second monitor watching The Godfather while eating lasagna.
right.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But it's good. I mean, I encourage. I mean, they have a trial. You know, you can sign up for free and try it and see if it's your cup of tea. But it's great.
Isn't it I feel like it's weird that I've just never even tried it. Like, I have no like, this I think I maybe did the Microsoft Flight Simulator when I was a kid, you know, like, in the '80s, like, one of the earliest
Yeah,
ones, you know, where it was just really crude. But I honestly I wonder if that would really I don't know. I'm like
it'll
one of
help
those people where, like,
it'll help
I'm not a
instrument.
I'm not a gamer. I'm not a so I don't know if that I don't know. I just feel like it's like a way of doing things that I'm just more into the real thing, but
Yeah.
I know I'm cutting myself off from that experience, and I need to probably, do it.
Well, there's definitely value in that radio part, but also like when you get instrument, for sure, there's value in
Oh, yeah.
simulation. In fact, so like my subscription with Pilot Edge is on hold currently. I haven't been. First of all, I don't have the time currently, but I also haven't been using it. But I'm going to reactivate it. They have a whole IFR series of trainings and stuff that you can do kind of along with your actual training fly. There's just tons of scenario based stuff that you can do Pilot Edge with controllers. That now see that's such a key part of instrument flying, right? Like there's far less uh, requirements as a VFR pilot that involve air traffic controllers, but as an instrument pilot, like it's incredibly important to be able to follow instructions and enter holds and take vectors and do the things that you need to do. So when I get started on my instrument training, I'm definitely starting that subscription again and doing it
Is
again because it was helpful.
so I don't wanna take us even further off topic, but one more question about the SIM thing, which would be, is there anything that when you're doing the SIM that is frustrating in the sense that it's so I know that everything's very hyper real in terms of graphics and it's amazing and, you know, all this stuff. But is there anything about it where you're just maybe frustrated that it just there's a part of the experience it just does not encapsulate, like, maybe
Oh yeah.
how it lands or I don't know, just
Oh
something
yeah. For me, it's all of the mechanics of the actual. I mean, they've gotten so good at the modeling of these airplanes and how they behave aerodynamically, but there are some things you can't emulate. First of all, obviously you don't have any of the sensations of flying, which is hard.
Mm,
I find that like I find it incredibly harder to land the 172 in the X plane 11 than I do landing the real one. It's just so like I've worked really hard to dial in like the sensitivity settings of my yoke and my rudder pedals and the whole thing, but like it's just like hyper weird and like you
yeah.
just you lose a little bit of the feeling. I mean
Okay.
you can't simulate the simulate some of the feelings. And then we need to answer a couple of things here before we get off
Yeah.
the flight sim.
We'd like to hear from people.
Student aviator said flight sims have helped me in ways I never understood until I began my PPL training. And that I feel like it was a huge part of mine as well. I was a simmer way I mean years and years and years and years before I ever started training. So I joke with people I probably had 5,000 sim hours like or something ridiculous over my lifetime
Well,
before
you
I
know,
took
I
my
had so the last flight I even posted a video of, but it's with a buddy of mine, and he is, looking to start training 'cause he hasn't trained at all yet. and he's done a lot of sim stuff or whatever. And it is incredible to me how we got in the plane and got into cruise, and I let him, sort of fly for a little bit and all this. But the thing was, is that here he is in the right seat. He was not there. He didn't look outside for even a millisecond. He was just, he might as well have been hood flying. It was just just instruments the whole time. I was like, you should look out here. There's this whole thing, but in a good
Whole
way, right? I
world
mean,
around
I
you.
wasn't being a jerk about it, but it was just sort of funny to me that my instinct as a not sim person, I think, I had much less problem getting outside, dealing in, I don't know, reality
Right.
versus
Right.
versus I think people that can maybe come up with a lot of sim stuff, especially they haven't started training yet and they haven't balanced out how to look at everything proportionally. Uh, it was just so funny to me that he was it as soon as he got the rein, as soon as he got control for a second, it was just locked on, and his head did not move the entire time. So, do you find that that was a thing for you?
Yeah, I like looking inside. I struggled with that, and Tyler, my instructor, yelled at me a fair amount about looking out, looking outside occasionally. I still do it. I mean, I catch myself still
Yeah.
getting over fixated on something, and having to tell myself like eyes outside, eyes outside. I'm getting better about it. Some of the times I used to be completely petrified of airspeed, like about 83% of the time I was in the airplane. So like in the pattern, it was like I looked at the airspeed indicator about every half a second. Like
Yeah, yeah.
those things do change with time. You
Get
just
a
start to
feel. Yeah,
feel, yeah,
yeah.
how fast you're going and where you're at and how the plane's feeling, and it just, you don't have to get so focused on that anymore. But
So I don't mean to cut you off here, but I wanna get people in the chat to talk a little bit. Give us, uh, either things that you envision that you wanna do when you get your private, certificate, or things that you immediately did or are doing, and, if you're newly certificated, or if you're wise and old, and have done this forever, tell us your ways, but share it with the group.
Stephen Caldwell says, "Yeah, I'm pretty bummed about not being able to do overnight trips once I'm licensed, like you were talking about, Brian. I
Mhm.
haven't done any research, but I'd love to start a flying club like Chris. I'll tell you, there are a ton of benefits to them. This isn't going to become the flying club episode, but we should do one at some point.
Yeah,
They are such an asset to the aviation community,
yeah.
because there are so many little areas in the regulations carved out for them.
Mhm.
You can structure it as a nonprofit. There's just so many things you can do that make it, I wouldn't say easy. I mean, you got to have a dedicated group of people that want to come together and work on something. But there are like 100 different ways to craft it depending on what fits your circumstance. So and the AOPA has tremendous resources. They have a staff. There's like 3 people on their flying club team
Uh-huh.
there to help with getting them started, and then how to kind of get some guidance. So I
Okay.
would uh, I would be happy at any time to talk to anyone about.
Well, so yeah, I have 2 questions then. One is, why aren't are there people that are skilled in this in such a way and experienced in this in such a way that they offer their services in a consultancy, where it's like, don't have time to figure out all the things about a flying club, right? Yeah, write that down. It just seems like that would be, you could is there a way for you to sort of pencil yourself into some access or equity with all these various flying clubs that you actually engineer starting through these different, kind of to make it really streamlined and really
so
procedural?
I could, someone could I be a consultant. I mean, you could certainly help people get them started. The issue comes, really, there is no legitimate way to operate one as for profit. There are all kind of reasons, legality reasons, why you cannot do that
Mhm,
and still be recognized as a flying club. Now,
mhm.
that is not to say that there aren't any. In fact, someone sent me a podcast. I need to look up the name of this school again, or this club again. I forget. It's in Florida. This place is massive. They operate at like 10 different airports. They have a staff. Like, I don't know how they're, I'm not sure how they're getting around some of the regulations for operating as a club for profit. I mean,
Florida.
Exactly. There is definitely a dividing line between like a flight school slash um, aircraft rental company and a
Mhm.
club, and the protections and benefits that you get for being a nonprofit club should not apply to for profit. And there are a couple people who are trying to do it, and it's only a matter of time, I think, until they're going to get shut down. So that's the first reason that most people don't put a ton of effort into like doing it, because like we have a club now that's almost 30 members, and there's a fair amount of money that comes in, but just it's all gone back out again. I mean, nobody's getting paid, nobody's getting uh, there is no profit being made.
Mhm.
What we are getting out of it is super cheap access to airplanes. I mean, our members are paying like $50 an hour for this 172 that they're flying, and it's ridiculous.
I'm
Um,
so tempted. I'm just gonna leak this out a little bit, but I'm not gonna go down this path. But I just wanted to make a joke about. Actually, you know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna make that joke. But it's funny how I guess when people come together for the common good and share resources, it's amazing what you can actually do when you're not profit motivated. But anyway, so
Fair.
but
I am with you 100%.
so
As you know.
but oh god, it's so funny. All right, so so I guess I'm just wondering uh ha- i- if I'm a person with no airplane, can I start a flying club? I know that's a weird question. Can I just
So I
be like
did.
I'm the president now? Find people with planes.
Right. So here's a pivot. Episode 6A is now titled
Oh my god, I know we just
How to
went
Start a
off the
Flying
rails.
Club. We made it 37 minutes into this topic, and now we are on to flying clubs. Um, so yes, so there's okay. I guess let's commit to this. Let's do it. That's for the last. We'll take 15 minutes on that, and then we'll come back to questions and stuff
It's a
at the end.
power off 180 in conversation.
So primarily, like here's the big picture overview. There's basically two different types of flying clubs that exist, and you've probably seen some of these mentioned, like even in like Trade a Plane and stuff. People selling shares of flying clubs. So like there's what they call an equity club, which is where the people who are members actually own part of the club that owns the airplanes, right? So when you buy into an equity club, you're buying into the airplane, like you're saying. And most of the time, those buy-ins are like they're like depending on the number of members. If there's like 10 members, it's like these are like $6,000 to buy into the club or whatever, because you're actually buying a tenth of the airplane effectively, right?
Mhm.
Um, and those clubs they do exist and people do them. Those are typically for smaller number of people, in a group. And it's actually just one way that some people who want to own a plane but also want some other advantages find a way to like own a plane. They make a private flying club with their four other buddies, and that's their flying club with no
Mm.
vacancies. Then there is what we did, which is a non-equity flying club is what I started, which basically means members don't own anything or have any stake in this club. This is I joke with new members when they come in, like I remind them, like this is not a democracy. You don't get to vote on thing. I mean, we do have monthly meetings. We're fully transparent with our members because we're all trying to do the same thing, but also it's not a it's just not a every decision that's made doesn't get run by all 30 of you. And I mean, it's there's a board that we've appointed, and then there's there are officers of the board, and I'm the president, and we have a vice president, secretary, and treasurer, and we have a 7-person board of directors that we appointed. And it's an appointed board, it's not a voted board. We appoint board members. um And so what we did was the guy I was renting 52 Lima from was no longer going to rent it once I passed my check ride, because I was one of the only people flying it. He wasn't making any money, and I was freaking out because I said, I'm not going to have an airplane. And I said, I did a little research, and there were about 3 or 4 others of us who were looking for a plane. And I said, why don't we just start a club? And I went to the owner and I said, if I start a flying club, can I lease your air? Will you lease me your airplane? And he said, yeah, we'd love to see it fly, and I'd love to see a flying club here and see aviation successful. And so we were very fortunate that the first owners we approached were sympathetic to our cause and wanted to see us help us be successful out of the gate. So all that to say, we had a very favorable, we negotiated a very favorable lease agreement. Basically, we pay them a monthly fee plus X number of dollars per tachometer hour. because the way we structured our club is that the club is not responsible for capital expenses on the plane, meaning engine overhauls, paint jobs, anything that can convey can the value concurs with the plane and that goes with the plane when the lease is over is their problem. Maintenance is our problem though as a club. Tires, oil changes, wear and tear items, inspections, those kind of things. Okay,
Optional stuff.
right, exactly. The low dollar affair stuff. Anyway, so we lease this plane from him. Club members pay a buy-in. We call it an initiation fee for legal purposes. So they come in and uh, pay us a fee, and it's north of $500. The principle behind that was when we started the club with 6 of us, it was because we needed startup capital, but then we kept it because it's helped us weed out people who are jokers.
Mhm,
It's just kind of a way to say like you're going to make a commitment to this group, and that's how we know that you're serious. And so
mhm.
they buy in at
Put
that.
a ring on it.
Then our dues are $75 a month for members, and then the dry rate that I mentioned earlier for the 172, and I think our 235 currently is like 74 an hour or something dry.
Oh my god.
Um,
That's so cheap.
it's amazing, and so it works out. The math works because we have structured deals with our partners, our own airplane owner partners that are fair. I mean, we're paying effectively 10% of the value of the airplane annually, is what our lease payments are, and that's kind of a figure that's out there on the internet as kind of a standard for leasing back airplanes like that. And so we pay those dues. The club pays for insurance. Insurance is the single biggest expense the club has. You'll find that if you investigated it at all. There's only one carrier in the United States currently offering flying club insurance, and it's we just renewed ours this year. It went up, I think, 2% over last year, which we were actually very pleased. We thought it was going to be more than that, and it's a lot of money. We're paying for the insurance, paying for the inspections, which actually one dull geek had a question about. Do airplanes in your club fall under the commercial use requirements requiring a 100-hour inspection? The answer is no. We are not considered commercial use as a flying club. So unlike your flight school, these planes do not require 100-hour inspections. However, we decided we weren't comfortable certainly going annual either when we have airplanes that are flying 30 to 50 hours a month depending on the season. And so, because can you imagine if you had a plane flying 40 hours a month, by the time it was a year, it'd be 480 hours right on the plane. That just seems ludicrous, to not have it inspected. So we have decided as a club it's 12 months or 200 hours. It'll never be more than 12 months or more than 200 hours between inspections for our planes. So that's the short of it. So that's kind of how we structured our plane. The other question people have all the time is like, you can't be a flight school. So how do you have all these student pilots taking lessons in your club? The allotment for flying clubs is you can have approved instructors who can teach members of your club. But if you're going to do that, you can't prevent people from bringing their own instructors. In other words, you have to approve them. Instructors, you can't limit who can give instruction, or then you do start to fall into some of the gray areas of needing 100-hour inspections and operating as a commercial flight school. So
Wait, so that part's confusing to me, or I didn't understand. So you're
yeah,
saying that the student must be a member of the club, but the instructor cannot be?
can be, doesn't have to be. What the rule is there to protect us from like operating as a covert flight school without having the rules. In other words, if we were only allowed instruction from like Jim, uh, we're effectively paying Jim as a flight instructor. But like if a member C comes in with wanting to learn to fly but knows an instructor that wants to teach, or any other instructor wants to teach, we have to allow or at least be open to that, to looking at that. So there's some gray areas with instruction, but the point is like I can't publish rates. I can't offer instruction rates to our members. Like they have to work that out with
Yeah.
instructors who are familiar with the club. But absolutely, people who fly the airplane or are going to take lessons in them have to be fully fledged, full paying members of of the club.
Do you get a T-shirt?
We have not done any attire yet.
Oh,
We are having a
jeez.
Christmas
Are you
party.
you tell you pay
We're having a
$75
Christmas
a month,
party
you don't
on
get a
Thursday.
T-shirt?
Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A at the Christmas party on Thursday night. I haven't even told the people who are coming yet, but there's nuggets.
Hey, you know what? It's it's you gotta keep the cost down, right? This is not about wasting money at, fancy Christmas parties. So,
No.
so is it possible for me to, be a member of your flying club if I do not live in your state?
Sure. I
Okay,
mean,
you'll take my money is what you're saying.
I'll take your money if you can come figure out how to get our planes.
So
Yeah.
then so, like, okay, so what if I knew that I was gonna take a month-long, just insane trip, and I asked for 11 months notice, "To hell with your bylaws. I'm gonna buy into your thing for a year, and then I'm gonna cash in all of that in like a 27-day, mega flight."
Well, so you
I'm just throwing scenarios, but I'm just curious.
I
Like,
can
what
give you the scenario. So you
Yeah.
lose the buy-in, it doesn't apply to any flight time. So that's just cash to the club. So
Uh-huh.
that doesn't get you anything.
Okay.
Nor do your $75 a month dues other than gives you access to pay us money for the hours that you want to use the plane.
Right.
Our rules say if you're going to be gone on an overnight, for every overnight that you have the plane out, you'll be charged whether you flew them or not. You'll be charged a minimum of on one of our planes it's 2 hours and the other it's 3 hours per overnight that the plane is gone. So if you take a trip that is 6 hours of total flight time, but you're gone 3 days, what you're really going to get billed is 9 hours of that plane. You know what I'm saying? So there's a
Mhm.
minimum overnight fee, and that's just simply to keep people from taking the plane for 3 weeks and then coming back and I've only had that plane fly like 4 hours over a 3 week period. Like that's a problem
Okay, so I
financially for
can't
the
take the
club.
plane forever and not fly it and not have to pay for it, and I don't get a T-shirt,
Yeah.
and
See, it's not
okay.
looking as good now, is it?
It's not it's just I don't know if this is cut out for me. No, I mean, I would love to do it. I guess I'm scrounging for just, especially, not being independently wealthy, and, at a point of a particular deficit just to even get into this whole calamity, and being so far from, owning a plane or something outright. I mean, and then, around here, you're gonna get on a list for a hangar, for like 11 years or whatever. I mean, it's just the prospects here are very bleak for all of
Yeah.
that. So really, that is the thing. But again, I've looked around at flying clubs, and they're just insanely expensive and not worth it to me. And especially like, why would I pay just about as much as I'm paying now? So yes, okay, I can take it on an overnight and still pay it in the same kind of way you're talking about, but I have to drive 45 minutes to get there. I
Right.
don't know, like, I'm just in this
Yeah,
I'm in a
no.
I don't know how unique my pinch is that I'm in or not, but I feel like there's not quite a solution for people like me that
Well,
really
and
fits.
here's the other benefit, and this is something that is fairly common in non-equity flying clubs, right? Is that they lease these planes, and most of the time they're leasing them from club members, and that is the case in our flying club as well. Like I own the 235. Me and a couple other club members own the 235 that we lease to the club. And so that's the only way that I am a quote unquote airplane owner at this point is that I have someone else that I'm leasing it to, at this time. Now that
Yeah.
so here people say, well, how is that a good deal for you? Well, so it's kind of it is and it isn't, right? Because like um, I'm on the title that I don't for this plane, but I don't directly pay for it currently. But also, I have to, if I want to use my own plane, though, now that it's leased to the club, I have to be treated just like any other club member. I
Oh,
have to schedule it like they do. I have to pay the hourly rate to the club. Like, I mean, that's the deal with the flying club leasing.
no diplomatic immunity,
No, none. It
no
just
executive privilege.
nope. But it was a perfect thing because then you can go to your membership. Like as we continue to grow, we're going to need to look for a third airplane. Well, now I can go to the membership and say, does anybody want? Here the club would be very interested in leasing a plane similar to this. And then a group of them may get together and say, well, we would buy this plane, and lease it to the club. And then, people have it also opens the door to airplane ownership for people who may not be able to do it right now on their own. Who knows where we'll be in 5 years? Maybe it'll be time to pull the 235 out of the club and it'll just be my plane at that point. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it's a
And
neat,
by
it's
then
got,
that 235 will be worth, $300,000.
the way things are going. Real quick, and then we'll move on. The other, I should mention, in fairness, I mentioned airplane owners as our partners, but like we've been very, very fortunate to have, because I see all the comments going on about hangar space being expensive and hard to find, and you
Mm.
mentioned it too. I should put the comments back on the screen so everybody can see what's going on. So we've been very fortunate to have an airport like Fairmont that has been incredibly supportive of the club. And I mean, we're not getting any special favors. We had to get on the hangar waiting list like everybody else, and it just so happened that we were in line. We had people's name on the list that were in the club before we got our second plane. So a hangar opened up and we were already on the waiting list. But have been tremendously supportive of what we're trying to do there, because I think the flying club has been responsible for a very large percentage of the activity at that airport since it started.
Right, you're
Uh,
organizing like it's like you start having punk rock shows in the back, and then, like now it's like a legit venue and people can
right.
sell beer, and it's
Exactly.
bringing attraction and economy in that wouldn't be there otherwise. You're building something, whereas I'm trying to sort of infiltrate something.
The airport has been incredibly supportive,
Yeah, that's
and we're
so cool.
also very fortunate to have, and I'm going to just name him, Josh Craddock, who owns Flight MX, which is the maintenance shop on the field at Fairmont Airport. Who I can't tell you what I've learned over the last 18 months or so of both airplane ownership and then also the flying club formation, how absolutely critical it is to have a partner, like a maintenance partner. Like, I don't just mean like having a guy that fixes your planes. I mean like somebody who is also who cares about what you're doing and is like there to like help when you need it. And like you cannot put a price on it, and so don't try and get weird and go to the bargain basement and like try to just shop it
Yeah.
around. Like, find someone who you trust and who is good for you, and then stick with them. And it's really, really hard to put a price tag uh, on that kind of thing. So
So,
I
yeah,
just want
one
to
dull
mention.
geek, is saying here, that he's talking about the AOPA Flying Club Registry or whatever. It's funny because when you and I were talking about this a while back, you had said, "Well, I don't know, just go look on the the AOPA thing," or like, "You know what? I'm gonna pull it up here right now." And then you were like, "Oh,
Yeah, there's nothing
wow,
here.
it's
Yeah.
actually weird around there. You're in a void." So yeah, thanks, one dull geek. I have looked at that, and there's nothing there for me really. It's very strange here because there's a lot of aviation going on. We've got Murfreesboro, which is where MTSU is, and there's a lot of uh, aviation college level type things going on over there. And then you've got John Tune Airport here, which is a pretty darn busy airport. BNA right here, pretty darn busy airport, and a lot of these tertiary kind of surrounding airports. But man, it's just like I don't know. I'm not sure what the deal is. By the way, this has nothing to do with anything, and we'll get to Steven's thing here real quick. But Chris, I just wanted to tell you something. My last flight, for the first time, I got recognized over the radio by
Isn't
another
that fun?
pilot, and I didn't ever stop repeating to my wife, "Did you hear that that guy recognized me?" Um,
It
and
is fun when that happens.
it was such a cool thing. There's like these little sort of miniature rites of passage through the whole process, and I felt like
Good for you.
somebody. I feel like
That's awesome.
somebody, Chris.
Stephen Caldwell asks, "Is the 235 considered complex?" That's a follow up going back to talking about my plane. It is not complex. It is, however, high performance. 'Cause it's got a engine over 200 horsepower. It has one of the components of complexity, right, with the um, fixed. I'm sorry, the fixed speed propeller. but does not have the landing gear. So it is not you do not need a complex endorsement, but you do need a high performance endorsement.
I think David here is lamenting the strange void that happened after the joke I told earlier. Um, so have you ever flown a plane with a retractable gear, Chris?
I've not. It's on my list though.
Mm.
It's on my list, as is tail wheel, because my instructor Tyler, I know I've mentioned, he bought a Citabria, and it is. I see he's flying it all the time. It's yellow and awesome, and I want to do the tail wheel thing, but I've not flown a retractable gear airplane yet.
Yeah, I'm still contemplating getting a complex rating and flying the Aero that's available to me, and that is available for longer trips and all that. It's just more expensive, but
Constant speed prop. Thank you, One Dog Geek. That was I had a complete.
oh yeah.
I
What
was
did you call it?
reading
Fixed.
constant pitch or something. I don't
It's
know
such a
what I said.
confusing term because it doesn't sound
Well,
like what it is.
constant speed, variable pitch, variable speed, constant pitch. It's yeah, but he's right. Constant speed is what I was trying to spit out there.
But like that sounds to me like fixed gear bicycle, which means it has no gears, meaning that it's just a direct drive kind of a thing, right? So it's anyway. I just work here.
Don't get caught up. It has the blue lever. That's my plane has a blue lever.
How many horsepower is it? You said it's over 200, but what is it?
235.
Oh, is that why it's called a 235? I didn't even know that.
Yep.
How did I
That's
not know
why.
that?
That is why.
So the have you ever flown a Piper Warrior?
I flew a Warrior for my very first flight hour I ever took at the flight school in Morgantown.
Oh yeah.
And it was yeah, it was fine.
Do you look back on your do you ever go back and kind of revisit for whatever reason your early training videos?
I do
It's
because
the weirdest thing, right?
it's very weird. Yeah, it's very weird to see the things that have me so freaked out
Yeah.
then. Like we went out in the we went out in the 172 the other night. I kid you not. I told David, who was with me, we did a couple high speed taxis and we're just maneuvering on the ground even, and I'm like, this thing feels like I could just like with my pinky like make it do whatever I need it to do. After even, I mean, it's not like the 235 is like an airliner, right? But it is enough, like it is enough of a difference of an airplane that it feels like it feels big. And then you get back in this one, it was like, but we were remarking a couple times, that's not a complacency thing at all, or that I think I have things figured out, because things can always, you just, you don't, I don't. But it was just like, man, I remember some of the stuff I would have went around about 2 of the 5 landings that we did the other day, like in my training, because I was like, nope, nope. But I realize now, like, the more the more you realize, you've got things aren't as bad as you think they are when you're first learning to fly.
Yeah, I've had one of the things I've noticed when I've gone back, and one of the reasons I've been kind of going back is because I have a friend who's training and she just started and she's maybe 7 or 8 lessons in, and having all the typical things, right? Like I feel like I should know so much more than I do. I'm so nervous, all these things, and so I'm always just trying to figure out. I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing the next lesson? Like she says, okay, I'm doing steep turns or whatever. So I go back in my videos and find like the first time I did steep turns and I'm just a mess or whatever. And I send her those videos. But one of the things that I noticed is that back then the airport that I fly out of was non-towered, and how my situational awareness was just like, even on my solo, I can't believe I thought that I had some kind of mental picture of what was really going on, but I'm realizing I didn't even really understand what that guy said, or
Hmm.
or this guy, that plane. Like I see myself and I'm like, you should probably do a 360 and space yourself, or what? Like I just didn't understand the speeds of planes and just all those little
Right.
nuances, and it's kind of almost, it's like, imagine if you could go back and watch video of yourself learning how to ride a bike and you just, you're like, "Ah," it's a
For
little bit
sure.
frightening.
Spatial awareness, that definitely has improved for me. Uh, just kind of have an understanding of where you are in space and how you fit in and where you should go. I still occasionally have to really think, and this is embarrassing, I really have to look twice before I like call up a tower to report my position to make sure that I am where am going to say that I am. Like
Yeah.
I've caught myself even in recent videos, like leaving Clarksburg. Clarksburg is about, I don't know, 8 miles south of the Fairmont Airport or whatever it is, 10 miles south. I don't know. But I will still tell Clarksburg Tower, I'm going to depart the area southbound when I'm going back to Fairmont. No, I'm not. I'm departing northbound because Clarksburg is south of me. But I'll just say that for some reason, or like I'll have to do a double take just to make sure that I'm telling the tower I'm like 12 miles east with whatever. Like I got to really, I have to just make sure of where I've been with some people who just like are like a human compass who just continuously
Yeah,
know
yeah.
their position like to everything, and I'm not one of those people. I have to think about it.
Yeah, my instructor would get so frustrated with me, like, "You can't see that?" Or what, like, "There's that tower right there, like, you don't see that thing right there." I'm like, "No, I'm sorry, like, I don't, my eyes don't work." There's all that sort of skill that, um yeah, actually, what I do is I fudge intentionally now my location to be slightly different than what it is to get preferential treatment to land, right? So,
Yeah,
no,
you do. Yeah,
no,
you
but it's
do.
like if I'm just even a little bit northwest, I'll just go ahead and say that I'm northwest so that I get a direct base, or straight in, as opposed to entering on the 45. And, I'm just saying, you
You
learn
gotta do
these
what you gotta
things.
do. That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
good job. That was it was good talking with everybody tonight. We're gonna stick on this 2 week schedule. However, we are going to take a week off between Christmas and New Year's, and we'll be back on whatever that is, January 5th. I think is the week between, and we'll record our next episode on then. And I see that you have prepared tonight, as I've been asking for repeatedly,
I can't
to play us
jeez.
out tonight.
Hey,
Thanks,
listen.
everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody. By the way, just, my New Year's, my goal between now and New Year's is to reach I'm at 96 hours, and I'm trying to get to 100 hours.
Well, the
So,
way you fly, I have no question you'll get there.
we'll see. We'll see how the weather does. But, yeah, thanks everybody for all the input. And let me see. I don't even know if I can hear this. Can you hear this?
Now I can.
Oh, here, we'll do Blade Runner. It's very majestic.
So long.